Hi everybody, it's Connie again. I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up with the books that I read in March. Please. First up, I'm going to talk about Silver Star by Jeannette. There we go, better look over here. This book is about two young sisters who have an absentee mother. She likes to leave for days at a time. They're pretty good about taking care of themselves, but once when she disappears for so long that people in town start to wonder if she's actually around, the two girls hop on a bus and go across country from California to Virginia to stay with their uncle that the older sister has met once, but the younger sister has never met. So there they get to learn a little bit more about their family, what happened with their mother, why possibly she is the way she is, and they also run into some other problems while they're there. It's a little coming of age, slice of life type of story. This book had a couple issues with it. I like the setup for it. There was a lot of scenarios not fully thought out, characters that I thought were not fully drawn. A lot of it had to do with, there wasn't a lot of dialogue in this book. People would start to have a conversation with one another and then it would just switch to what they had said as in a paraphrase. And it was pretty distracting. It was told from the point of view of the youngest sister, but I still think that we still could have known her point of view while still having the dialogue from the other characters in there, so we can get to know their motivations a little bit more based on what they were saying instead of what she was telling us that they had said, and getting her point of view intertwined with that. So that was a little weird. In one way, I liked the way that the story flowed, but it just seemed like it took a while to get to the main point, the main plot, and then it seemed to be wrapped up really quickly, and so I just felt like there's chunks of this book missing, and it also ends on a slightly odd note. So I just almost felt like, was that the last page that I read? Is the book really over? So it didn't fully work for me. The next book I read in March is Victoria Aveyard's Red Queen. This is a young adult dystopian novel about the red-blooded people and silver-blooded people. So the red-blooded people are more like humans. They end up being servants to the silver-blooded people who have supernatural powers, kind of like X-Men. With the main character's named Mare, and she is red-blooded, but through some circumstances it comes out that she actually has some superpowers of her own, which shocks the king and queen because no red-blooded person should have any kind of superpowers, so that threatens their lifestyle. So they keep her close to them, and she also gets to know their two sons. So of course there's two handsome princes, possible love triangle going on. The way this is set up very much reminded me of other young adult dystopian series like Hunger Games and the Divergent series. But even though the setup was very similar, the plot itself went into a different direction. So towards the end of it, I actually was caught up in the plot. I want to continue reading the series, even though this isn't my favorite book in the world. I thought it was only okay. The character development was so-so. The love triangle, or just the love relationships in general, they're all right. Nothing really grabbed me. I didn't really get a big sense of Mare. Even though she's the main character, she seemed like she almost had no personality, or she was just vague enough so that the reader can put their own personality onto the character. So I felt like that. I wanted her to be a better character, and I also wanted her to have more relationships with women, because she had a lot of relationships, like fatherly, lover type relationships or brotherly relationships with all these different male characters in the book, and most of the female characters, the two primary ones, are just straight out villains and not three-dimensional whatsoever. So I really hope that there's more character development going forward, and I do want to continue the series because I usually continue them as soon as I start reading them. So I will go on and read the next one after this. The next book I read was a reread, which was House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, is I think how you pronounce it. This book came out in 2000, and I decided I wanted to reread it to see if I still loved it as much as I did before. It's crazy inside this book. So this book is insane. It is about Johnny, who works in a tattoo shop. His friend calls him over to his apartment complex because his neighbor has died, and he said he has to check out the inside of this guy's apartment. While he's in there, he finds a manuscript this guy was working on, and this guy wrote the manuscript about a documentary that is about a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. There is a door that opens up to a hallway, used to just be a very shallow closet, opens up to a hallway that's pitch black, and it seems to go on forever, and if anyone goes into it, it's really cold, there's no drafts, there's nothing on the walls, it's all black. Sometimes there's corridors that go off into other corridors, to other rooms. Sometimes there's stairs that go down to miles and miles. There's a growling noise inside there somewhere. This also changes. What's inside this house, it shifts all the time. So inside the house is crazy. That part of the story is very, very scary. And the way that this book is laid out is it's the manuscript that Johnny found with all the notes, the annotated notes that, I guess that's repetitive, the notes that the guy found who was writing the manuscript. And then also in the footnotes is the story of Johnny putting this together and also what's going on with his life and how this is affecting him. And this book is, there's just crazy stuff. So you've got just things here, here's some notes. I think some of this, yes, is Johnny's footnotes. Things are crossed out. I want to find this other area where things are really weird. Yeah, part of the book is like that. A page like that. There's one sentence down here. Page is like that. And those are actually fairly normal because other times you have to turn the book around in a circle to read everything because things are just going off into different directions. And some might find this obnoxious. I can understand that, but I love this book. It is... There we go. I was looking for more of this stuff. There's boxes within boxes. This one is the mirror image of this. Oh, it's crazy. It also has a lot of appendixes. So one of the appendix in the back is letters that Johnny's mother wrote to him when she was in a mental institution, and the editors of the book say they put it in there so that you have a better idea of what's going on with Johnny. And while I was reading this, I remembered that I had actually purchased the Whalestoe letters. That is the letters, just the letters from Johnny's mother that she wrote to him while she was in the mental institution until her death. And so this is in the appendix of House of Leaves, but there's actually additional letters in this, and this is also just as a standalone. So I read this to read the extra letters that were not in the original book. And this does actually stand on its own. It's a little story of what goes on with his mother, what she did to him, and just how it affected his life. But it totally adds to the story of House of Leaves. So I highly recommend House of Leaves. It's just a bizarre, weirdo book. And then the last two books I read were both Stephen King as part of my Stephen King project of reading his books chronologically while I'm also watching his any adaptations that have been made of his works. And what I'm really doing is listening to it on audiobook. And so while I was listening to an Audible, I was reading, it was Night Shift that I was on, and they broke it down into 3 different audio books. which was highly annoying instead of just having it as one. And then they also didn't include all the stories, so there was like no audio version of Children of the Corn. So I had to go pick up a used version of this, even though I used to own this a long time ago because I did read this years ago. So I had to go pick this up just to read the last few stories that I didn't have on audiobook. So what I found out is, as much as I remember loving this short story collection in the past, I liked about half of the stories, and also the ones that used to scare me when I was younger. They didn't really scare me now. It could just be because I kind of remember what happened. But the ones that I actually liked the best were the ones that not necessarily were the scariest ones. They just had some other quality to them, just really good stories. And some of them were more thrilling aspects, or they were just kind of creepy, like the story about the eyeballs on the hand. That was a good one. And the last book I read was, well, not necessarily the Bachman books, because I'm trying to read all these stories in order, so I only wanted to read Rage, which actually came out before Night Shift, but it took me a while to find it, because it is no longer in print. It's a story about a high school senior that goes to school with a gun, shoots 2 teachers, and then holds his classroom hostage. And some kids in the 90s, this was like printed in the late 70s, early 80s, some kids in the 90s said that this book inspired them for a school shooting, or they found it in the locker of a kid that had done a school shooting. So after this happened a few times, Stephen King decided to let this book fall out of print. So the only way to find it is there's going to be no audiobook version of it. I had to find a used copy of this, because now if you find the Bachman books, it includes 3 novels instead of 4 by Richard Bachman, which is Stephen King's pseudonym. Pseudonym? Anyways. So I only read Rage. Actually, there's audio versions of all the other ones, so I'll listen to those otherwise, but I have this whole entire book now, but I mean, I found it used and it was really cheap. So this book, when I started reading it, I was kind of apprehensive about the whole school shooting aspect, because that didn't really sit too well with me. I kind of understood why he let it fall out of print. But then after I got past that shocking beginning, it was really a good book. I heard it described as a breakfast club where these kids are trapped in this area, all these different kids from like different cliques, and how they actually have to talk to each other and tell each other stories and learn things from one another. This was like that. It's just he was holding them hostage because he just really wanted. He had something to accomplish that you finally learn at the end what he really wanted to get out of it, but it just actually surprising to me, because I'm just going to read this one. I didn't expect to really like it, but I actually liked it a lot, and it's kind of disappointing that it isn't available, as readily available to read. You have to search it out to find it, and there's no more copies in print, so it's unfortunate. So those are the books I read in March. I have not finished my reviews on Goodreads yet, but once I do, I will put them in the comments below. I'll also put links if you want to purchase any of these books. If you've read any of these books, what did you think of them? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any suggestions or anything else, please let me know. And if you like this, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.